my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're gonna see some serious
It has begun!
Calm down, Doctor. Now is not the time for fear.
Trying to misbehave.
Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Program complete. Enter when ready.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to another Geek News Movie Night, where it's myself, your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody's having an awesome day or night when you're listening to this. And it's where me and my panel of fellow geeks, namely my lovely wife, Andrea, as well as Alex the Shadow Blazer, finally put our last year's vacation to rest as we finally tackle the last film that we watched. Which just seems so appropriate to Andrea's addiction. I mean, you're totally not addicted or anything like that. Andrea, how are you?
Oh, fine.
Are you fine? Are you really?
Mm-hmm.
Alex, I think we need an intervention. I think you need to take her to the Shadow Realm and let her see a couple of tentacular horrors, and maybe then she'll be off this zombie shtick.
Okay.
There's no getting off the zombies? Okay. Well, worth a shot. So today we're talking the last movie that we actually watched, and this one, because Andrea is such a, I believe the Europeans call it a resiholic. As soon as she saw that there was a Resident Evil CG film that came out like 2 years ago, she's like, we gotta watch it. We gotta watch it. We gotta watch it. And turns out that Andrea actually might have made a bad decision there.
Okay.
I'm being brought back to flashbacks of Vampires Suck, where turns out that the movie that we watched in question, well, there might be some things attached to it, but first let's introduce it. So today we're going to be talking Resident Evil Death Island. I kept saying it was Dead Island. I have to call it right because, believe it or not, there actually is a game franchise called Dead Island, and I would confuse people. I don't know why I did that, because, I mean, they had that wonderful bust way back when of a zombie in a bikini. I don't know why I would have... crap, what is the company that put that out and then, for some reason, also got put in charge of a lot of video game industry nightmares? Deep Silver. Deep Silver was the one that put that out. But today we're talking Resident Evil Death Island, which is actually part of and I shit you not, this is the 6th entry in the CG Resident Evil universe. Yes, it is a separate universe starting from Resident Evil Degeneration all the way back in 2008. So that was the first one. Then we had 2 films happen right after that, which were in 2012 and 2017. So basically, they had a consistency of like every 4 years, we're going to put out a CG Resident Evil film. Oh, but it gets more complicated, Alex, because then they added to this canon a 2021 4-episode miniseries called Infinite Darkness.
Wow.
So when I say that there are 6 parts, basically, it's technically 7 because the miniseries you have to include into it, and they're all connected. And this is also, and the part that makes it worse is that these are also officially supposed to be canon within the Resident Evil timeline. It's okay, Alex. I heard you facepalm. Because
okay.
I just heard you having that happen. So basically, the way to explain it to people is I believe Degeneration happens shortly after the events of Resident Evil 2. Now, keep in mind, it was the original 2 because the remake hadn't come out yet. So it's in between. It's sometime after the events of the original Resident Evil 2, because the main protagonists of it were Claire Redfield and Leon S. Kennedy. Except Leon had not gone through the events of Resident Evil 4 yet. So this is going to include a lot of lore, people, that these two don't, well, Alex might know, but Andrea doesn't, and I wanted to keep it that way. Thanks, Miss Death Island.
What?
But basically, after the events of Raccoon City, and after Raccoon City got nuked, Leon got brought into the CIA. Because of course he did.
Yeah, of course it did.
Cop on his first day, instantly a candidate for the CIA.
Well, I guess if you survive Raccoon City,
I mean, yeah, right.
enough.
You survived a freaking tyrant. Okay, yeah, you're CIA caliber material right there. So that's where it starts. All right. We're not going to get into G Generation because we're talking about Death Island, but I'm just going to kind of paint where all of these technically happen. Then we go to Resident Evil Damnation, which was the second film. And I believe this takes place. Yes. So this would take place somewhere between Resident Evil 5 and 6. Because it would have Leon S. Kennedy return, but also would have Chris Redfield. But in his 2000 or in his Resident Evil 6 look, because believe it or not, after Resi 5, they started kind of, roughly after about Code Veronica, they started like really messing around with Chris's design. And so 5 is the one that everybody knows because that's the one that went into Marvel vs. Capcom. But then 6 got a different iteration. Then 7 got a different iteration. And ultimately, Village has its own iteration of Chris. So, are you confused yet, Alex?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, it's going to get worse. Oh, and also, I should point out that lovely Ada Wong, in her Resident Evil 6 attire, is also in there in Damnation. Then, we get to Resident Evil Vendetta, and this is, I believe, still also between the events of 5 and 6, because it's once again Leon and Chris, but in that same kind of attire. Oh, but also, they brought in Rebecca Chambers. Yes, because Rebecca is also part. Like, you follow the same characters in these films.
So are these all CG?
These are all CG films.
Then how come we never watched them?
Because they're hard as hell to get access for.
Oh.
Because basically what would happen is, like, yes, Sony did make them, but remember, Sony doesn't have a streaming service.
Mm-mm.
So at that point, we had, like, I think Netflix had Degeneration for a while, then it went to Amazon Prime, then it went to Pluto. Yeah, it's...
Oh.
This is why I don't recommend this shit, and why I really wish you hadn't seen that goddamn trailer.
Why?
Because then I knew I was going to be walking into this nightmare.
And why would you care?
Why would I care? Because I knew that you were going to be missing out on stuff, which meant that you would probably... Never mind! I'll get to it later. Okay. Then we get into Infinite Darkness, which is... let's see, where is that one set? Set between the events of... Oh, this one actually goes back in time because it's set between Resident Evil 4 and 5. So, I'm trying to think. I think this is how it connects up to Death Island, at least a little bit. Yeah, so this one connects between Resident Evil 4 and 5. Basically a previous mission of Leon S. Kennedy while he worked for the CIA. So, this is basically them trying to fill... In case you guys can't tell, Resident Evil 4 came out in 2004. Okay? 4 years later, we get nothing but media on Leon Kennedy. Gee, I wonder why. No, seriously, Alex, answer me. Why?
I guess all the gals liked Leon.
Could it have been because Leon was fucking hot? Yeah. So we got this 4-episode miniseries, which... I don't know, maybe Netflix might have it, but we'll have to double check it. And then Death Island, which is set basically continuing after the last film. And it also has a big plot hiccup because at this point, not only had the Resident Evil 2 remake come out, but also the Resi 3 remake had come out. And so, since they had just barely worked on that model, guess who came back? Our lovely Jill Valentine, post events of Resident Evil 5. Why is this an important thing? Because how do I do this without spoiling Resident Evil 5?
Well, then don't say anything.
I can't.
Well, I know what happens in 5.
You know what happens, but Andrea doesn't. I'm not going to give you details because I'm going to make you wait.
So, okay.
In Resident Evil 5, Jill switches sides. Not going to tell you why, not going to tell you how, not going to tell you any of that.
Oh, dear.
But then, post Resident Evil 5, as of Death Island, she is now back. Oh, and also, she had her own little excursion called Resident Evil Revelations, which I'm guessing you've seen those games too, right, Alex?
I don't think I've seen Revelations now.
They are also in continuity with a lot of this stuff. So,
Okay.
I don't remember where their events are. But the first game actually does have Jill in it. And you thought Chris's model switches were bad? Oh, look into Jill. Especially post Resident Evil 5. And the reason that this is important is because after the events of Resident Evil 5, and since they had made the Resi 3 remake, she now was in her whole new look based on the Resident Evil 3 remake. So somehow she had become 20 years younger in the whole process.
Mm-hmm.
Because she was a lot older than that. I'm kidding, but yeah, ultimately the events of Death Island are the STARS crew are now reunited just in time to go to Alcatraz Island, where a T-virus outbreak has broken out, and all of the familiar players are all in place for Death Island. That's the premise of the entire film. It is survival horror, the movie, on Alcatraz Island.
That's why I will call this movie The Rock with zombies.
And no Nicolas Cage. Although
Noted.
although Nicolas Cage as a G-virus horror would have been amazing.
That would have been.
Actually, yes,
Absolutely.
it would have been. Considering the villain that we ultimately got. But unfortunately, it's actually been a while since we have watched this, so I'm not sure how much is going to stick to memory for you guys. But
Wow, lucky for you, I rewatched it ahead of this review. So.
Good. So to bring people up to, or to give a reminder, the events are set on I was about to say Raccoon City. No, they're set on Alcatraz Island, except this version of the T-virus actually is able to infect people who are still alive, and thus can turn them into zombies early. And or can turn them while they're like tourists or whatever, and that's how we have our incident start for our heroes to come and save the day. And it's all in the Alcatraz Island, and it's not where they're all together. Basically, I think the way they do it is Leon is off in the CIA. They don't know what he's doing. They communicate with him rarely, but Chris, Claire, Jill, and Rebecca, I think.
I didn't think Rebecca went with them. I think
Wasn't
she
there a
came
fourth? Wasn't there a fourth that went with them?
I mean,
But-
Rebecca eventually does go to the island.
But
That's
yeah.
right.
Deliver
She stays in the lab
vaccine.
for a lot of it. But I could have sworn there was a fourth that goes with them to that tour group. They go to Alcatraz, and then the incident happens.
I thought it was only Jill, Claire, and Chris.
Okay, maybe there was a fourth
Totally
person,
bad.
but they were unimportant and probably
Just
zombie fodder.
Just because Leon shows up eventually, maybe is what you're thinking about.
Yeah, because wasn't Leon?
Which, by the way, I love this. In this film, Jill somehow found the Fountain of Youth and got like 10 to 20 years of her youth back, but Leon is 10 to 20 years older. Did you notice that?
I didn't notice that.
They actually did, like in the CG model, if you look at it, they're trying to make some of his hair gray.
Oh, wow.
It's like, okay, well, wow, that's a weird Fountain of Youth, right?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
wasn't Leon riding a motorcycle going on a car chase sort of thing? And
I think that's how he initially discovers it, but he actually ends up in the sewers to infiltrate Alcatraz. And that's how, because I remember, I actually looked up some clips before recording this, and there is a scene with him and Jill in the sewers, fighting lickers, obviously, because that's what they have to do. You have to have the Resident Evil crew fighting bioterrorism abominations, right?
Absolutely.
And of course, since it's a liquor, the thing that I remember the most out of it was they apparently really were fixed on Jill getting molested with the tongue. Even though it was like above the clothes and all that. I mean, you just barely watched it. You remember that, right?
Yeah.
Like they had to have the liquor thigh and all that. I'm just like, dude, really? Okay, whatever. And ultimately, yeah, the whole purpose of this is that there is this is another thing that I kind of have to explain in the lore. And Andrea's left the room, so that's even better. Post Raccoon City and post the fall of Umbrella, which is kind of around the events of Resident Evil 5, the plans for the T-Virus and the G-Virus get out. And now you have a bunch of other organizations that are trying to make their own tyrants to be able to compete in the new military market. Oh, noes, right? And this guy was no different. He tried to have his own version, which is the one that can attack you while you're alive and turn you while you're alive. So at that point, the whole purpose of this is, you have to track down this bad guy so that he can't put this virus out, because I think he was going to do it like via the water supply or via the ocean and put it out there. And so they had to stop him that way. And of course, because it's a Resident Evil, his hubris gets the best of him. He injects himself with the virus, becomes a big G-Virus horror, and they have to take it out, right?
Oh yeah, didn't they use like insects to infect the tourists?
That was one of the ways they did it. I think they also admitted that they used like an aerosol or something. Because the tourists weren't hit by the insects. They were hit another way. I think it was like an aerosol. Like they poured it into the general population room in Alcatraz. But of course, since Chris, Claire, and Jill have had so much exposure to the T-Virus, apparently their bodies are just immune.
Yeah.
Don't explain that. What you're thinking of is when the insects infect them.
Mm-hmm.
All but Jill, I think.
Yeah, because
so it becomes like a race against time to get them a vaccine. And this is actually where Rebecca comes in, because she can find a vaccine for it.
Well, she probably synthesizes one or something.
Yes, because they found like a sample of it early on or something like that, and she synthesizes it. But it like you get that race against time, plus it has to end with the final big boss battle and all that. Alex, we're going to start with you since you most recently watched this film. What are some positives of this film?
Well, positives would be it is pretty well animated as a CG movie. I thought the action scenes were pretty nice for the most part.
Yep. Especially since Capcom foots the bill for these animated movies.
Yeah. Let me see. In this case, hang on.
It's also why they're like 4 years apart, is because usually a game has to come out and that'll fund it. So
for looks like it was Quibico, TMS, and Stage 6 Films that all worked on the animation together.
Yep.
So it looks pretty damn good, I gotta say. The action scenes are pretty exciting, and ultimately, I do think it looks pretty nice. The character models are great.
Although the Fountain of Youth thing aside for Jill and for Leon.
Without getting into any spoilers, I could maybe weasel a justification out of my mind for that one, but we won't go there. But
it was just easier.
Dub casting. I thought the dub voices were pretty nice. Yeah. You got Matthew Mercer as Leon Kennedy. So
well, he's been Leon for a while now. Because I want to say he played him way back in Resident Evil 4, and since then he's been playing him.
Well, they see. I'm curious now.
But Andrea, while he's looking that up, what is a positive of this film for you?
Oh, I agree with a lot of what Alex said, but I really enjoyed how they looked, and they chose the most recent models for most of the characters. And
for what they had with Chris, because he had like 5 or 6 models at this point.
Well, that's true. And I love some of the humor they used, and, it was just kind of fun to kind of dive in the nostalgic. And then,
What's nostalgic about it?
I don't know.
You're a recent Resident Evil fan.
So what?
Like, for me, that would be the case.
Well,
but...
yeah, well, okay, whatever.
Did you find what you were looking for, Alex?
Yes, so to answer your question, for Leon, Matthew Mercer, he's played him since Resident Evil 6, Revelations 2, and Death Island, this one. For RE4, Degeneration, The Dark Side Chronicles, that was actually Paul Mercier who played him.
Okay.
Paul Mercier, he was Bear in Dot Hack.
Did he play him in, who did Paul Mercier play in Dot Hack?
Bear.
Oh, Bear, okay. Who did Mercer come back for 4 remake?
Let me.
Because I think they would have gone with the recent casting. They wouldn't have gone back to the old casting if they didn't have to. I will start this off as a weird one because I have both a positive as well as a negative. Because they both play into both of those aspects. Contrary to what people might think, I both love and hate that this is based within the game timeline. Here's why I love it. Because you are actually able to maintain kind of an MCU level of consistency. And keep in mind, this was basically in the works after Resident Evil 4. So you could almost make the argument that this is pre-MCU. And so, at that point, they were trying to create like a Resident Evil media universe before that. And I like the fact that they tried to maintain that consistency. Here's why it's a negative. It's also further complicated the timeline. Because it is so difficult to keep track of stuff now.
To answer your question about RE4, no, it's in RE4, he's played by Nick. I'm probably going to butcher this name here. Apostolitis or something? Apostolitis?
Apostolitis? I think I know the name. Okay. That's interesting. They didn't even go back to... Because Mercer's a great Leon. I think he's actually played Leon, and I think even in this one, his performance is really good. Yeah. They even went to the actress who played Jill in RE3 remake for this.
Yeah. And Nick is the voice of Leon from RE2 and RE4.
Oh, so you know what? That makes sense because now they can make a canon within the remakes, so that he can get a little bit more work. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. But yeah, that's my positive and my negative. Is like I do like the fact that this is based in the timeline because Capcom is involved and because they can do that. But also, it has further complicated the timeline to the point where once we get past 4, I have no problem telling both of you it's going to be very hard to keep things straight.
No.
Because 4 is basically when they said, okay, the virus is out and everybody else can make it. Everybody else, it's like Syndrome from The Incredibles. And when everybody's super, nobody will be. When everybody has a tyrant, no one will have a tyrant, you know? And that's where it becomes really frustrating and complicated. It's why I actually like that 7 happened, because then they could just isolate things back into a fixed kind of frame. They didn't have to worry about, oh, the whole world has the T-virus now. Instead, you're only worried about what you were in the original Resident Evil games. In this isolated incident in this random bayou in Louisiana kind of thing. As opposed to one of the reasons that people didn't like Resident Evil 6 is because it is a globe-trotting affair. So it's very difficult to keep track of what is going on in that. Another positive that you would have, Alex.
Positive.
Oh, and remember, in between this, at some point, Chris Redfield becomes a boulder-punching bastard. So,
yeah.
Yes, I don't remember if it's 5 or 6, but he'll become a boulder-punching bastard. So, you got to keep that in mind. But go on.
I had something, and then
Something about a liquor?
yeah, liquors. I thought the liquors were pretty cool. It's cool to see them again.
I like the fact that they
liquor.
actually went into the well and got some old monsters for it.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
loved the liquor. It was kind of cool.
Considering that it was a sewer scene, they could have like brought back something like the Hunter Beta type or something like that. But I think, in all honesty, they brought back the liquor for a good reason, which is that people really love the liquor, and what has been done with it, so that they want to bring that back all the time. Kind of like with Cerberus, like zombie dogs happen a lot too, because Resi fans just love them. Same thing with the liquor. Like, I would even say that to some Resi fans, liquors are more popular than hunters. So
Probably because they're way creepier.
they really kind of are. But then you kind of go back and go, huh, this was a sewer scene. Wouldn't it have been cool to see a big ass shark or a big ass crocodile? Nah, you know what? I'm okay with liquors. The only thing I wasn't okay with was the molestering of Jill. That was going a bit too far. I was like, look, I get it. You have a ginormous tongue. I don't need this to be like the anime dude who like licks his sword after he's killed a bunch of people. All right.
After her dealing with all the crap in 3, I'm pretty sure she's like, I don't need to have a liquor.
Right. Well, I mean, she dealt with far worse in events like 5. Okay, so Andrea, another positive for you for Death Island.
It's just funny to see Chris in that that Hawaiian shirt, and they were just making fun of him for that or something.
This is another one of those things where they apparently love to make fun of Chris now, because Chris is. What's funny is that like a lot of this has been influenced by Marvel vs. Capcom, but technically he wasn't the first Resident Evil character to go into Marvel vs. Capcom. It was Jill that went in first, and she was treated more seriously. And Chris goes in there, and now they do like a bunch of jokes with him. I don't know what happened there, Alex. I really don't. But now Chris, like, he's either a steroid junkie or he's like, they make fun of the fact that he's a steroid junkie by putting him in Hawaiian shirts and making it work, kind of thing. It's a weird deal. But yeah, no, I agree. There were actually, the humor in this was actually pretty good considering it's Resident Evil. So, sorry, go ahead.
I was agreeing. There are definitely good jokes for sure.
Yeah, and they're Resident Evil. They're Resident Evil jokes is basically what I'm saying. It doesn't feel like it's out of place. Do you like if Chris was going to go as undercover to Alcatraz, yeah, he'd probably have to wear a tourist Hawaiian shirt. If they had put him in the khakis with the black socks, that might have been a little far. That might have been a little far for Chris. But I still think it would have been fucking hilarious. That's me. A positive for me in this regard is that, look, we're probably going to get into the negatives being the plot of this film, but in case people haven't noticed, I laugh at a lot of Resident Evil games, and I have a fun time playing Resident Evil games. I have fun making fun of Andrea and her addiction to Resident Evil games, because this is a Resi plot. Whether we like to admit it or not, this is basically replace the Spencer Mansion with Alcatraz, and it's fine. I'm totally fine with it. It's a self-contained plot. It's a self-contained incident. And that's when I think Resident Evil shines the most. When it's just an isolated incident and you have lore surrounding that entire incident and everything like that, but you don't have to worry about what's going on outside. That's when they do the hint of the sequel, right? Is when they show, oh, the rats got out of the mansion and they're headed for Raccoon City. That's when you worry about the rest of the world. And so I will say that the fact that this is a contained Resident Evil story, and it has all the same cast members that you know and love, and they can continue to make fun of each other. I actually you liked the thing with Chris. I liked a lot of the banter between Claire and Chris, because it's one of those few times where you get to see them both in the same frame together.
I know, that's like one of those rare things you ever see.
Yeah, so you actually get to see them be brother and sister, which I thought was good. But yeah, I love the fact that it's a Resi plot. I don't know how else other to explain it than that. Alex, any other positives for this for you?
I would definitely agree. It definitely has the feeling of just a simple Resident Evil plot that you could play.
As much as I will make fun of the villain later, I mean, technically, if you had told me that he worked at Umbrella, I would have totally believed you. But like that's why this worked, is because it's what we've come to expect with Resident Evil plots, and what movies and Netflix series continue to fail to realize. So, okay, Andrea, any other positives for you?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, and that pretty much covers me, because you guys have already covered like all the banter and everything like that, and the humor is very self-contained. So it's not like, we're gonna try and justify putting Chris and Claire in Street Fighter outfits because it's Capcom, right? No, it's all self-contained. So what did this film do wrong in your eyes, Alex?
Well, I did give a lot of praise for the animation, but one thing that really bothered me was the models were always so pristine. Like, they never got cuts, never got dirt, never got scuffed.
Yep.
Like, they just never looked dirty or
What's really sad is
injured.
for some reason, because you've never played this, but Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite had a weird deal where it wasn't that the characters got battle damage. They always had this weird sheen that would come off of them. So like it almost looked like they were plastic toys kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And I kind of noticed that with the animation here, although it wasn't the exact same. And I kind of didn't like that because, you're supposed to be in a darker setting. Things are supposed to look dark and dirty. And also the fact that effect kind of weirdly affected the lighting, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because again, dark, grim atmosphere, and yet the sewers have like this weird sheen to them that almost makes it look cartoonish. It is weird. It's one of those things where it's kind of a minor complaint overall, is kind of my viewpoint. I mean, is that how you look at it, or?
It was more distracting for me more than a minor complaint, just because I played RE2 and 3 remake, and I'm like, those characters, they do get dirty and they get scuffed up and they get injured. You get bitten, you'll have blood stains on your coat or jacket or whatever.
Right.
So,
I
was just.
I'm on the same point. Like, it's a minor thing to me because it was distracting. It wasn't like ripping me out of the immersion, but it was distracting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I suppose another thing for me, a complaint would be is how often. I guess I didn't do it too often, but when they did, I hated it. Was the whole, kind of Matrix film ramping where they would slow down for a moment.
Oh, when they probably do those.
Yeah, they basically tried to be like all the films in the 2000s when the Matrix happened, or just after the Matrix happened, where they all have to do like the Matrix-y stuff. And it's like, we're kind of past that, boys and girls. I mean, if you want to imitate John Wick, that probably would make sense more in this universe. Andrea, what would you say this film did wrong?
Probably just the Matrix thing, but that's it.
All right. This is probably going to get me smacked by Andrea, but the insects. I actually didn't like that plot line. Where they were injecting the virus into insects so that they could infect other people. And here's the main problem that I have is I can't remember who says it, but one of them actually does say after Claire and Chris have been infected that for some reason they're immune to the T virus. But they also openly admit that the virus that they injected the insects with is basically the same ass thing. So you just said that your characters are immune to it, but they're not immune to this version. I think they would be immune to all of it because they've had the most exposure to all of this, right?
We would think so.
That, and the other thing too on the insect is like, okay, you have to make me ask this question. How did you inject this virus into these insects? Like, I hate to say this, but anime has done this better than you. Because, like, I can already say, like, in Yu Yu Hakusho, though, there was a doctor character that would create demon insects that would have their own virus that he created within it. That makes more sense to me than trying to think about this in my head of you like literally trying to hold a mosquito down and inject a virus into it.
Not unless if they had like blood with like, and it was like contaminated with the virus, and the mosquitoes drink it, and then it's...
If they said it was synthetic, Alex, I will give that point. But I'd still go down the angle of like Chris and Claire are immune except for this one tiny little strain. That's kind of weird. But if they are synthetic, then I'll give you that. I think more what they did was what Andrea was basically saying, where they gave them exposure to it.
Yeah, that would make sense too.
And to me, that no, because then at that point I'm like, okay, how did it not kill them?
But then again, do you think the insects?
And not every animal that gets infected with the T virus comes back. Keep in mind.
Yeah, but actually, if you think about it, are they even actually real, or are they kind of like robotic sort of thing? Because it looked like he had a way to be able to control them.
Okay, then maybe they were synthetically made, like Alex is saying.
Yeah,
if he could do that.
That's what I assumed anyway. That they were like little robots, little drones.
Yeah,
but then my other argument still stands. Like Chris and Claire have had so much exposure to both the T and the G viruses that I'm sorry, you can't just say like, oh, well, this is the Omega strain, and therefore no. If they're 60, sure. I'll give you that. And their immune systems are weak. But we're talking about two people, one of which is military trained. The other one is a representative for a company that, even though they do have like military operations, it's mostly like they're like, not Greenpeace, the people who go in and take care of the oil spills. Yeah, that's who the company that Claire works for, TerraSave, is like.
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, like, I'm pretty sure Claire's pretty fit, but we're talking about two very healthy human beings who have had exposure to these two deadly viruses. I'm pretty sure they're immune. So your insect variant shouldn't have worked in that case, at least according to Resident Evil logic. So that I'm still going to stick to my guns on that one. Any other negatives that you have, Alex?
I feel like that's about it for me.
Maybe I'm remembering this wrong. Was there a point where they tried to, when the final boss kind of came out, or the guy infected himself, where they tried to use a submarine to kill him?
No, I don't think so.
No, he was in that's right. He was in a submarine bay when he tried to get out.
Yeah, because didn't they try to shut the doors to prevent it from escaping or something?
Yeah, and I think didn't they use the doors to kill him ultimately?
Yeah, that's how they killed him.
So yeah, no, he was in a submarine bay. What did we think of him? Because those big climactic monsters are a Resident Evil thing.
You just love it when the villains
decide... So like comparing it to other monsters you've seen, how is this guy compared to them?
I'd say pretty average. I mean, it just reminded me of the big one you fight with Claire. I think that was just Nemesis again, but in RE3 remake, when she does use the railgun like she does in this movie.
Yeah, you're talking about the final variant of Nemesis in that one?
Yeah.
Claire or Jill?
Jill.
Sorry,
okay.
Jill.
I was going to say, Claire didn't
use the railgun, Jill does.
Well, yeah, because I thought Claire didn't even fight Nemesis.
Because Jill is basically the Ripley of this franchise. She is, now I get it, everybody, she is the Ellen Ripley of this franchise.
Claire fought off Birkin, didn't she? Because in the final, right?
What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah, Claire took on Birkin instead.
Yeah. My bad, I mixed up the names. Yeah, okay. Jill.
I don't know how the 2 remake goes. Who ultimately did kill Birkin?
Well, I guess if you don't count the in the RE2 remake,
I think Capcom has justified it by basically saying Birkin's dead.
Well,
and
yeah,
that way it can be either or.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I'm not counting the very final form, but Claire does take on Birkin before they take off in the train, whereas Leon took on Mr. X.
So. Yeah, that's the canon version. And then, at the end of 2 remake, he killed the tyrant, or Mr. X, and she killed the final form of Birkin. But like the thing I was thinking of was that final fight in the lab. I don't think they have a canon ending for that one. It's
well,
just that he's
the
dead.
one on the train, it's either or. Like
It's Claire. It's Claire that kills him. That's the canon version according to Capcom.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but on the train.
Yeah, no, on the train. What I'm saying is Capcom has officially said in canon Claire killed him on the train.
Okay. Oh,
but
yeah.
Leon killed Mr. X canon-wise. So like they basically kind of gave even though you technically killed him in the game with either or, they gave them both one.
Is that the original or the remake?
final Mr. X?
Yeah, but is that the original version or the
remake? The original is no longer canon.
Okay. Yeah, because
that's the thing that you both will have to realize is once the remakes happen, Capcom tries to overwrite the canon with it. So like the original canon of the first game is no longer canon because they added the materials into RE1 Remake. So RE1 Remake is the one that's canon.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I was thinking of the final
because Lisa Trevor's canon.
Yeah, because I was thinking of the after you play both scenarios, you get that final extra cutscene where you either, depending on who you were playing in A versus B, will take on Birkin last time before they...
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying, is according to Capcom, according to the canon of that, Leon killed the final Mr. X tyrant.
Yeah.
And Claire was the one that did in the train Birkin. Kind of thing.
Okay.
I'm going to say this isn't that good. And the only reason is because if I remember, the way that I remember it, he felt a lot like the big puddle of slime in Parasite Eve. And so it doesn't really feel like a Resident Evil monster in my eyes. And granted, I've seen a lot more monsters than you guys. If I put him up against Birkin, or if I put him up against Nemesis, I've got to say that they're better. And it's only because I kind of don't like when Resident Evil villains lose concept of what they are in those sense. So like every Resident Evil end monster will devolve into like this big giant eldritch horror, right? But you still get some semblance of what they are from them. And in the case of this guy, I remember there really wasn't a whole lot of definition with him. He was just random fish blob monster, and we killed him. Yeah. So like putting him up against Lisa Trevor or Birkin or Nemesis, I like those a lot better. I like those a hell of a lot better. And frankly, Evelyn from 7 is a much better example of like becoming this giant tentacular horror at the end of the game and still maintaining what you are. So I totally say that. Andrea, any other negatives for this one for you?
No, not really.
Okay.
Didn't Jill also use like a big gun, kind of like similar to the one in...
Yeah, Alex was saying this. She used the railgun, kind of like an RE3 remake.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, that was kind of cool.
That's why she's the Ellen Ripley of the franchise now. Is because they love putting the big ass guns in her hands.
She really is, yeah.
Which is funny because like when up until this wasn't the case after 3, and now it's come back with 3 remake, which I just find absolutely hilarious. Because I'm trying to think of all the Jill outings after that. I think 5. Well, like I said, 5 she's on the opposite side, so she doesn't really get that. 6 she doesn't show up. 7 and 8 she doesn't show up. Revelations she shows up, but she doesn't really get a big gun. It's more like going back to survival horror roots. I don't even think she gets I played the first one. I played a little bit of the second, and I don't think she gets like a rocket launcher or anything like that. But I also will say that Jill's appearance in this, post the things that she went through in 5, is actually pretty good. Because they also did still try to point out that she's still dealing with some of the shit that happened that led her to switching sides. So I like the fact that they tried to maintain some level of character development. And in my opinion, they did it better with her because there really wasn't a whole lot to be able to do with the others. Like Leon's in the CIA. He basically lives mission to mission, and that's kind of how Chris and Claire are operating now. Is like they just go mission to mission, so you at least got some semblance of character development from Jill. So I like that. But unfortunately, this is usually the time, if people have watched our Ghostbusters review or our Aliens review, where I would be playing clips. Here's the problem, though. Capcom, not Capcom in particular, but Sony, since they distributed this bugger, they are apparently very copy aggressive with stuff like this. And so if we played these clips, they would be silenced pretty quickly. So unfortunately, and on top of that, finding good clips that don't have a bunch of gunshots in them is very difficult in this movie. Would you not agree, Alex?
I mean, that is the name of the movie here. It's gunfight.
Well, a lot of the good moments are like, yes, there are good moments, on the tour to Alcatraz Island, but a lot of the stuff with the witty banter is in between shooting things. So me being able to find those clips also would have been very difficult because I really don't want to edit out the gunshots. And the gunshots just kind of distract from it. It's more of a visual experience, people. So unfortunately, no clips. So we can go ahead and move on into the next step here, which is, out of 5, what would you give Resident Evil Death Island? Let's start with Andrea, actually.
What I would rate it?
Yes. Yes, Resident Evil-aholic. What would you give it?
I'll probably give it a 4.
What? Why not a 5? You're the Resi-holic. This gave you everything you wanted.
Oh yeah, you criticized me if I said
Yes.
5. I'm sure.
Oh, so it is a 5. Alex is giggling right now. She doesn't win, right?
She never does.
she never does. Not in this case.
I just go in for a good time. Okay.
All right. So you said 4 out of 5. What that implies that maybe there was something bad in there. What would you say? What was bad?
Just little minor things, but nothing too out of the blue.
Okay. Alex, out of 5, what would you give Death Island?
I'll give it a 3. It's a nice
I remember you enjoyed it, but you weren't big on it. Do you want to explain it?
I mean, yeah, just a kind of easy, nice middle of the road, kill an hour and a half kind of movie.
Yeah.
Didn't rock my world, but I guess when I watched it again, I'm like, it's not so bad. It was still it was enjoyable enough
It's a popcorn flick.
To waste an hour and a half on, you could do worse.
Like, now I want to put all the people who criticize Pacific Rim 2 in front of Death Island and see what they'd do. Kind of thing. They'd be like, they'd probably be going into all the nuances. I'm like, you did this wrong. You check your brain at the door and you enjoy zombies getting murdered. That's what you do. I mean, you couldn't even do that with Jurassic World. What is it? Fallen Kingdom. So, and that's Dino Crisis the movie, for crying out loud.
Dino Crisis the movie.
We have got to get to those games eventually. I still hear rumblings at Capcom or within Capcom that they're working on a reboot for that franchise. So we might have to get to it. It's Resident Evil with dinosaurs. So that might have to happen, but that is officially it, with one thing left to do, and I knew that this was going to happen.
What were you going to rate it?
Oh, did I not rate it?
No, you didn't.
No, you didn't rate it yet.
It's a 4. It's exactly what you expect it to be, but if you were expecting like some kind of high art, you're doing it wrong.
Well, it's too bad we didn't include Barry and Carlos. When will we ever see them again?
Well, Carlos is, I think he's in the military at this point in the storyline. Barry doesn't work for the BSAA. Barry works for another company. It's not TerraSave, but he works with another company.
I know, but it would be just sad without a Carlos. What does he say? Carlos?
That's why she gave it a 4 out of 5, Alex. That's secretly the reason she did. No Barry. No Barry, no Carlos. That's why. She just wanted all the man meat in the world, and she didn't get it. Which is really weird because Barry is not exactly what I would call man meat.
Hey, where's Sherry Birkin in this?
I can't tell you.
Okay.
I will give you this tease. She comes back later.
I know she comes back later. That's why I
But
was a
she
little
was not.
surprised.
Oh no, you're asking where she's at in the timeline here.
Yeah.
I think she's in the military as well. I think so, because the next time we see Sherry was in 6, and I think she was in the military at that point.
And heck, where is Ada Wong?
I can't tell you that.
Oh darn!
Actually, no. According to Death Island, she would have been dead. Sorry. I will say this much.
I don't believe she's
the ultimate
dead.
villain of 6 is Ada Wong.
Yeah, I don't believe she's dead.
You can believe what you want.
I don't believe she's dead.
You can believe what you want. I'm saying what the official record is. Doesn't mean the official record's right. We're talking Resident Evil after all. Where military accounts can be fudged, but according to the official account of Capcom, Ada Wong is dead. But then again, they also said Evelyn was dead and Village. So, can I spoil Village for you? Have you seen Village?
No.
Okay. Can I spoil it?
All right.
Well, she technically lived on in Ethan, so.
Oh. Okay.
There you go. So Evelyn technically wasn't dead, but there you go. I'm actually glad he hasn't. Now, when we actually get, maybe when we get to Village, like closer to Resident Evil 9, which we know is in development, by the way, then we could do Village and bring Alex into it, and he can tell us how gross he thinks the Duke looks.
Okay.
Well, the Duke versus Moreau. And I swear to God, if you fall for Lady Dimitrescu, Alex, I might have to hurt you. I might.
Okay.
Because I'm sick and tired of the internet craze that Lady Dimitrescu, everybody wants to be abused by her. and funniest thing, it was Jacksepticeye that ruined it for me. He ruined it, and now we can't go back.
Are we gonna play in third person view, or would you rather?
Of course. Why wouldn't we?
Yeah, we gotta.
That's the one thing that we can do that can make it different for us.
Oh yeah, because we've never seen it in third person.
Can't we do 7 in third person?
No, not yet.
They really did a third person?
I hope one of these days.
Yeah, they retroactively added third person mode to Village when they added the Shadows of Rose DLC.
Oh, cool.
So, because the Shadows of Rose DLC is in third person, and so basically the addition to that was that you could play through the Resident Evil 8 campaign as Ethan in third person mode. So, yeah, that's how we could change it. And you said that they're going to add it to 7?
No, I haven't heard anything, but I wish they would. One day. I know. Because that would be
Because then you'd find out that there isn't actually a sprite for Ethan. He just has the hand. And then it's just like a wireframe.
Well, I just find it funny when you see people play it in VR and you just look like their arm is like out there.
That's because that's VR. That's why I won't ever do VR.
I know, but it looks like their arm is cut off and you see like an arm just floating in midair.
Yes.
It's weird.
This is why, like, I love that people say that VR is such an innovative technology, and yet it separated my hand from my body. Not so innovative, is it? It's like it's real. Nope.
Which is why my arm is floating by itself.
Making some weird jack-off motion that we can't explain, but I'm not doing that, and I can guarantee you I'm not doing that. Kind of thing. But I have to, okay, really quick is kind of the final edition. I knew we were going to get this question the second that we started saying that Death Island was one of them. Because I knew it was attached to the CG films. I actually didn't know there was a miniseries at that point. And as far as I knew, it was only attached to Degeneration. So I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's probably not a big deal. But this question did come up. Since there is so much canon before this, would you, or have you watched the previous films? And if not, would Death Island convince you to watch the previous films?
Well, my answer is I haven't watched the previous films.
No.
I don't know if I will. Maybe I will. I don't know.
I think what they were basically asking is, would you do podcasts based on Degeneration and all that? And ultimately, I think what they wanted us to do is then go back to Death Island and see, now that we're all caught up, and see if it would change our viewpoint on it. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that here's my deal. I haven't seen them because they were so freaking difficult to be able to secure. I have never been able to watch them. Does this motivate me to go and watch them if they were all put in one place? That's my caveat. And I think Alex would agree on this, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to have to go to 4 different platforms and start up accounts there just to watch one movie.
That's true.
Agreed.
If you put them all in one place, sure. Would we do separate podcasts on them? I don't know. I don't know. Because I don't think that they're going to change ultimately that much. And I also, thankfully this one didn't screw up a lot of the canon that you guys knew, because you guys at least knew who Jill was. I had to throw in the circumstances that she's walking in with, but you knew who Jill was. I'm more worried that because those films will also have issues because they are in that post-Raccoon City Resident Evil world, that would become a problem. And so at that point, I would be more worried about making sure that it makes sense to you. That's one of the downsides of these films, guys, is that they are based within the timeline. And so at that point, if something gets explained in the movie that you don't know about, then you guys are going to be like, the fuck is that?
Well, just because if there's something I would know doesn't mean, when we get around
and here's the spoiler. I actually haven't played 6. So I don't know that plot. So I don't know how that changes things. I know that it has a new virus hybrid, but that's all I know at that point. So at that point, I might even walk in confused for a lot of those. Because I'd be like, what the fuck? Oh, wait, this was explained in 6? Okay, well, I don't know that. So, that's why I'm saying it's both a blessing as well as a curse. Because I don't have that aspect. So, that would be kind of my take on it, is that if we were going to do it, I would want to make sure that everybody could be up to speed and there wouldn't be missing elements, like crucial missing elements, that aren't going to make sense, because we're not just talking about 1, 2, 3, 4. We're talking about Code Veronica. We're talking about Revelations. We're talking about, technically, I mean, even stuff like Outbreak and Darkside Chronicles are all canon within it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So that's kind of the problem that then comes up. So that's kind of my viewpoint on it. Andrea, does this urge you to go want to watch the previous films? And then also, would you want to do podcasts on them?
I don't know whether or not about podcasts, but I would probably want to go at least see them just to kind of check it out,
I already know that with the miniseries, I don't think it ever got translated. So we would definitely have to do that in subtitles.
Oh, yeah.
So that I can guarantee off the top of my head.
But only if, like you said, if there's a way to actually see them, hopefully within one platform, or at least a way to see them and not have to go out of my way to pay lots of money just to go see it.
I almost kind of wish that Capcom. So give me your opinion on this, Alex, because Kingdom Hearts is also one of those really complicated timelines, right? And one of the things that Square Enix decided to do when they were remaking a lot of these games, and putting them in collections, was they took the problem element games, the ones that were on platforms like the DS, which was really hard to program for, and they basically decided, okay, with those games, we're not going to remake them into the modern format because we can't do that. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to make movies, like little cutscene movies based on them, and make them basically digital copies that are built into the game collection. And ultimately, another thing that they did in regards to this was the last one that came out just before 3. The only story they had left to tell was the online game Union Cross, which for a long time was Japanese exclusive. And so at that point, what they basically did was they took the first events of it, basically the first season of it, and they made a CG movie to cover those events, kind of thing. In a way, they don't cover all of them, because if you want to have the full timeline, you have to play Union Cross, right?
Pretty much.
But they did give you enough to be able to have a grasping point. I almost feel like if Resident Evil, since we know that there's like 4 games in the Resident Evil universe in the works right now. One of them is 9. We know that for a fact. And one of them is a remake, but we don't know which. A lot of people are suspecting that it's Resident Evil 5 being remade. I doubt it, because 5 has a lot of plot issues as well, so they would probably have to start from the ground up with that. But wouldn't it be nice if they included, as part of like the digital deluxe edition or whatever, a digital copy of these films that you can then go watch? You don't have to go to a streaming platform to go watch them.
That would be nice. Absolutely.
Especially since I know for a fact that the miniseries, it never got translated, which means it's probably maybe hit 1 or 2 streaming platforms, and they're probably only in like specific regions. So you need to have like a freaking VPN to watch them, kind of thing. And so wouldn't it be nice to just like, okay, accompanied with this, you get a digital copy of Degeneration. Am I wrong in that?
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's a great idea, especially if you're gonna attach it into the canon, so that at that point everybody's up to speed, kind of thing. So that's kind of my viewpoint on the matter. But that's pretty much all we've got, and that's it for the previous vacation. We finally did it, everybody. We finally did it.
Yeah.
Yay.
We did it.
Just in time for how many months do we have left? 5. We have 5 months left before our next. I'm looking forward to that vacation, by the way. Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes.
And I've already gotten some questions on like what are going to be the next ones that we take on. In case you guys haven't already listened to the Ghostbusters podcast that we did, I believe Frozen Empire is on the table, right? As long as it's out by that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know another one that you and I have talked about, Alex, is the Tetris movie, because we still haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And that would be really fun. Andrea, have we talked of it? I think we brought up that Spider-Man Far From Home was one we may do.
Probably. There's another one I want to see, but whether if we do a podcast or not, that's up to you.
What's the one you want to see?
I want to see the prequel Hunger Games.
Have fun with that.
I told you.
I don't need to up my Prozac dosage, right, Alex?
I don't think so.
No, I'm not. No, I as soon as I saw Mockingjay Part 2, I washed my hands of that. So have fun with that one.
Okay.
I will tell you this: you have 5 months to convince me to do it.
Oh my gosh!
If you absolutely want to do a podcast on it, you have 5 months to convince me.
Like I said, I don't have to do a podcast.
Because I mean, I would be there, but like if you want me to take it seriously, that ain't happening, girlfriend.
I just wanted to see it.
Okay, all right. I can already tell you one that I want to see, but I don't know if either of you are interested in this. But everybody has been screaming to me to go see Godzilla -1.
I want to see that one.
Because it has I don't think it's connected to Shin Godzilla, but it has a lot of inspirations from Shin Godzilla. So
You're right.
I kind of want to see that. Aside from those, I haven't thought of any, but obviously, like, as soon as we finalize a list, we'll probably hype that for people. Will every single movie get a podcast? I don't know. I mean, already I'm hesitant about the Hunger Games movie, but and I'm also the one I'm kind of worried about. I have no problem admitting this to you, Alex, is we've watched the 2 good Alien films, and everybody keeps telling me from here on in it gets shitty. So I'm not sure if I want to do Alien 3 right off the bat, but we'll have to figure it out, because I've also heard that unless it's the first 2 films, distribution gets kind of weird for 3 and Resurrection. So
I mean, they're all under Fox, so they should all be easily available.
Well, what I mean is like having them on streaming platforms.
Oh yeah,
because
I imagine all of them would be available.
Yeah, you have the disc, but we've also had issues with the discs. I think we watched the first one on disc, but then I remember how many things did we try? And Aliens on Blu-ray just didn't work.
Yeah, my Blu-ray for Aliens didn't work, but
we eventually had to go to Prime Video to watch it, but we'll figure that out, and if we can get Alien 3, then maybe. But the only things I can guarantee is that the Tetris movie and Frozen Empire are on that list. But that's about it. So I'm sorry to disappoint people. We don't have those answers, but we'll hype them up if we ever get them. But that's going to go ahead and do it for us. So, Alex, if people want to reach out to you on your opinions of Resident Evil and how your daughter or how your sister is a complete Resi-holic, how do they reach out to you?
Shadow Blizzard 3000 is my channel, and I do anime content on it, so that's where you'll find me.
I actually did find it funny that somebody said that since you're the Xenomorph correspondent of the podcast, you should find a way to be able to tie the Alien movies into your .hack timeline. Good luck. Good luck with that.
I can't do that. They don't have anything to do with
I think that'll be difficult. If people want to reach out to Andrea, they reach out to me. I'm somehow the personal answering service for both her and Brinton. I don't know how that happened.
I don't know either.
But if you guys are enjoying what you've listened to and your brand spanking new, consider liking the podcast, as well as you can give a subscribe to the YouTube channel. It definitely helps us out with algorithms and whatnot. And also, it lets you get notified when we go live for our live streams, because they are back. And I'm actually looking forward to this year because we're going to be putting a lot of games on the back burner. And one of which we've already done, which is .hack GU. We've finished that series. We're getting ready to finish Breath of the Wild. We're getting ready to finish both Resident Evil 1 Remake and The Messenger. So we will have a whole slew of new games for people to look forward to. And I am not going to announce what those are because I think some of them even Alex and Andrea will be excited about when we actually get there. So you guys can join us live on Saturday nights to be able to find that stuff out. And also, if you want to support us via podcasting platforms, you can do so at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, and Player.fm. And that'll do it for us. So once again, thank you to Andrea and Alex for not only enjoying all of these movies on vacation, but also having the incredible patience in trying to get these freaking podcasts recorded, man. It's taken forever, but thankfully we're finally here, Alex. We're finally here. We finally did it. And next time this is not going to happen. We're not going to have like months apart. I will find a way to get these things recorded, even if it means I have to streams have to be paid in order to do it. Cause I'm not doing this again. But that'll do it for us. So thank you guys so much, for joining us. And we will be back next time for the next bit of anime or movie content that we do. And in fact, you guys can check out some of that content as well, because by this point, me and Andrea will be reviewing Beyblade Season 1 for Geek News Marathon Night. And hopefully by this point, me and Alex are reviewing Sonic Prime on Netflix. So hopefully that's a thing too. But yeah, that'll do it for us. So thank you guys so much. We will see you guys next time.